This is crazy. The outgoing president of CMHC just acknowledged to a Senate hearing committee that there's no plan for housing in place. Yes, that's right. No plan to improve affordability, no plan to house the 500,000 new immigrants every year that are coming to Canada, and no plan to house the immigrants that are needed in order to build the houses that are needed at a pace that, by the way, is so far beyond what Canada has ever built in a single year that it is pretty much impossible to even comprehend. But even though the housing minister has acknowledged that it's near impossible to build the number of houses that we need, he's suggesting that it's not impossible, but at the same time, he's also the guy that doesn't have a plan. And you would think that the government of Canada, when they suggest that they're going to bring in a certain number of immigrants at any given time, would have a complete plan in place that includes the ability to house those people. How on earth do we find ourselves in a situation where we have a government who's planning to increase the population but isn't thinking about housing in an already unaffordable market? This is absolutely absurd, and I'm going to get into all the details, but before I do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And if you're looking down and you're going, oh wait, why am I not subscribed? I thought I was subscribed to Nolan's channel before. Well, that is because this channel is a brand new one dedicated to Canadian housing and Canadian real estate. Because unlike the federal government, I actually had a plan for how I was going to make sure that you get the Canadian real estate news that you need. So if you aren't subscribed, check below, click that subscribe button. And if you're new here, do the same. I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss what's going on here because there are several online articles, albeit not in what I would consider the mainstream media covering this topic. And specifically the testimony that was provided to the Senate Finance Committee from outgoing CMHC boss Romy Bowers with respect to the National Housing Plan that probably should have been in place a long time ago, but is still in the process of being built. Now, I have to preface this whole thing with the fact that Romy Bowers is the outgoing president of CMHC. She is leaving CMHC and she is going to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. So as she's leaving that position, maybe this is something that she wouldn't have said if she expected her tenure to be longer at CMHC, but nonetheless, when asked the pointed question, is there a plan in place? She said, no, we're still working on it. Or more specifically, the federal government is still working on it and preparing their marching orders for the new incoming CMHC boss, whoever that will be. And I'll show you this story here real quick because it is really interesting. This is from the Western Standard. There's another one from the Epoch Times. I'll show you both of these, but this is very much the gist of it. When asked point blank if there was a plan in place, her response was there's not a plan. She also suggested that there are many factors that they need to look at in order to create a plan, but nonetheless, there's still not a plan. And in my mind, this is kind of a cart before the horse conversation. Why are we having so much immigration and we're having plans around immigration without having a serious conversation first about how we're going to house them? Because it is clear that there's going to be a 3.5 million homes shortage by 2030. And here's the more important piece of that stat. Building an additional 3.5 million homes alongside the current average of 244,000 housing starts per year would require building over 700,000 units annually. And here's the kicker. Canada has never, ever, not once, built over 273,000 homes in a year. So we're not only talking about doubling the number of homes that need to be built, we're talking about tripling the number of homes that need to be built. And by the way, we've never even gotten close to building that many homes ever. This is absolutely absurd. And it's important to point out here that this is not a builder's problem. There are a significant number of builders in Canada who would be more than happy to build all of these homes. And there are more people waiting on the sidelines to get into that business and would be happy to do so. No, this is purely and 100% a government problem. Whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, there's simply not the tools for builders in place in order to be able to build these homes. And reducing the GST on purpose-built rentals is not going to do a ton. It helps a little bit, but the reality here is it is the permitting and the process of going about trying to get approvals to build that is the major problem. And this has many economists, including the CMHC economists, for example, suggesting that the building process in Canada needs a complete and drastic overhaul, top to bottom. And unfortunately, I think that might mean that we need a new level of government at the top in order to solve the problem that has very much been created by the government that is currently in place. And I'm not saying that any other party would do a better job, but what I am saying is that the current party has had its chance and it's time to turn over the reins to somebody else in order to get the job done. And I don't know if there's any greater evidence of this than the fact that we have a government that has an immigration plan without a housing plan. It is absolutely insane. And what's even worse is 2 days later, after Bauer's testimony, Chrystia Freeland sat in the same hot seat and dodged the question, as we've seen many times over and over and over again with the Liberal government. Now, I can't say that I am a conservative, I can't say that I am a liberal, but what I can say is that there is something systemically broken in the way our government is operating right now, and that needs to change. So the question then is, what does that mean for people who are looking to enter the housing market, or even people who have a home who are looking to move, or people who may be looking to sell? Well, the reality is this. There are not enough homes in Canada, and it doesn't look like there are going to be enough homes in Canada anytime in the near future. And what that does is it creates a floor in the housing market. So higher interest rates, higher inflation, things that you would expect that might cause the real estate market to crash are probably not going to have the effect that we would normally expect. So in other words, because of a lack of supply, the supply curve has shifted, and there's probably, very likely, a floor to Canadian real estate values. So what that means is even though we've seen prices come off the top, and we're seeing markets like Vancouver and Toronto start to have prices that are coming down from their peak, we're probably going to find very quickly a floor to the price reductions. And then at that point, regardless of what happens with interest rates, we're probably going to see housing prices remain pretty flat for the foreseeable future. And we may at some point see them start to go up, but the chances of them going down significantly once they've found that floor are pretty small, at least in my opinion. Now, that is not a prediction, that is not financial advice. I don't know your personal situation, but what I can tell you is as general advice, if you're buying with the long-term in mind, you're probably going to do pretty well, as long as you're looking at a 10 to 15 year time horizon. Now, if you're looking to buy with a 1 or 2 year time horizon, you could get yourself in trouble. But regardless of where you're at right now, if you're buying expecting that you're going to be able to own a home for the next 10 to 15 years and be able to afford it, you're probably going to be making a reasonably good decision. Now, that being said, if you can rent for considerably less than you can buy based on a 20% down payment, I might be looking at renting and banking some money for the next little while. But if the cost to own is pretty similar to the cost to rent, it might be a good time to jump into the market, especially if you know that you can afford it and you want that stability of owning a home. Because quite frankly, you've seen a pretty significant reduction in prices in the last little while in most of the big Canadian markets. So there is a buying opportunity there to buy off of what was the peak. But make sure you're getting proper advice both on the financial side, the mortgage side, and on the real estate side from a real estate advisor that you trust and that has your best interests at heart. Not just somebody who's going to go out there and sell you whatever home you're willing to buy, but somebody who is absolutely going to look at the numbers for you, make sure you don't make any mistakes, and make sure that you don't get screwed. Because I can't emphasize enough that the questions you should be asking about real estate and mortgages have changed. It's no longer about what's the rate with a mortgage broker or what's your commission with the realtor. It is now all about what is the strategy that's going to get me the house I need and allow me to live in it sustainably for the next 10 to 15 years and have it also meet my long-term needs. So keep that in mind as you're entering the market. And if you need help on the mortgage side, feel free to reach out to us at Mortgage 360. We can also help you select a realtor that we know will have your best interests at heart pretty much across the country. Oh, and if you want to see more about what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, make sure you check out one of these videos right here.